How's it going, guys? My name's Kyle Coleman. Work at Sidney High School, which is about 45 minutes north of Dayton in Ohio. Work as a health, PE, and weight training teacher, also the defensive coordinator for the football team. So a little bit about Sidney. We're a Division II school in football. Have about 900 to 1,000 kids on average. Where we were, as far as our strength and conditioning programs concerned, we were very traditional in the fact that, we were mostly after school. The main sports that we're lifting were football, wrestling. And outside of that, just very few athletes coming in and out. Sometimes girls soccer, different things like that. But we were very traditional, mostly after school stuff, and mainly focused on the football team. Where we're at, where we're going, kind of over the last 4 years, we've seen a little bit of a transition. It's been 3 years now that we implemented a weight training class during the school day. So our kids get the opportunity to lift during the school day. It was about 3.5, maybe 4 years ago. Our athletic director approached me, and we went over to Ben Davis High School in Indiana, and got to talk with their staff a little bit about what they do with their weight training class. And it was something we wanted to investigate, bringing to Sidney and allowing our kids to lift during the day. The following year, we were able to get one weight training class during the school day where kids were able to lift. At that time, it was, open to pretty much anybody. So we've had, everything from Division I running back was in the class, all the way down to kids that have probably never played a sport and have very little athleticism at all that first year. And now, fast forward 3 years later, we have 3 periods a day of the weight training class. Right now, I have about 110, 115 students that take that class. So it's anywhere from, 25 all the way up to 40 a period. And 3 periods a day, those kids get to come in and lift. Again, it's mainly focused on athletes, but it is an elective class for us. So kids can sign up for it at their own discretion. So again, we have, very, very athletic, very driven people in the class, but we also have, people that just kind of were curious and wanted to see what it was all about, and maybe have never played a sport in their life. So we have a lot of different ability levels that we try to do everything we can to accommodate everybody. In the three years that that I've been teaching the class, I haven't turned anybody away. We've had a couple people drop the class just because they couldn't keep up with it, and that was their own decision. It was never anything that I geared them or guided them towards dropping the class. Another thing that we've implemented over the past, I believe it's going on 3 years, maybe 2 years now, is an app called Team Builder. So that delivers all of our workouts for our kids, all of our student athletes, and it allows me as the coach to kind of switch up calendars and design workouts for our kids. So those workouts are delivered on an iPad, also can be delivered on cell phones or anything that basically can get an app. So our kids get their workouts on those, and we have a set of iPads in the weight room, about 20 iPads. So we put multiple kids on an iPad with a partner, and that's where you get their workouts. Very, very user-friendly application. It's something that we looked into getting a couple years ago. We looked at a couple different programs, a couple different products, Platform, Team Builder, and I know there are others out there. And it's, something that after investigating a little bit, I thought Team Builder, what they were able to offer for the price, it was a no-brainer for us. It allows our kids to track what they're doing weekly. It allows them to set a new max weekly. To be quite honest, we could probably get away from having a designated max out week. just because we have an opportunity to really max out almost every single day, depending on what we're doing that day. So Team Builder has been awesome for us, and it was something that I very highly recommend, especially right now, kind of the weird times that we're at. I'm still able to communicate with our athletes. I'm still able to upload workouts for them daily that they can access on their phone at home, and I can kind of track their progress and see where they're at. So Team Builder has been awesome for us. Something new that we just got this year was a training facility, mainly used for baseball, but it is, I believe it's about 30 to 35 yards long, and it's probably about 20 to 25 yards wide. It's got a bunch of batting cages in there, but all the batting cages kind of slide back, and we're able to get in there and run around a little bit. So that has been something we've implemented this off season for the first time. Is we're now lifting 2 days a week with our athletes if they're an after school athlete, and then on Wednesdays we have co-ed speed and agility for all of our student athletes, open to anybody. So girls and guys together come out there, we do some running on Wednesdays, and then if they do not have the class during the day, guys lift 2 days a week and girls lift 2 days a week. So that's kind of how our off season's gone this year. A couple of the reasons why we've kind of transitioned over the last couple of years. One is the administration. Our administration has been very helpful in allowing us to do what we want to do as far as getting weight training class during the day. Our athletic director has been very vocal in pushing to get these situations and these opportunities for our athletes. And he's done a phenomenal job, a lot of research, very well calculated. And he helps us, tremendously on a daily basis. And then our head football coach, just allowing me to kind of have a lot of control over the weight room, has been very helpful in all of our head coaches, whether it be volleyball or basketball or soccer. We're getting more and more support every year from the head coaches as they see, what we're able to do and how we're able to progress their athletes. So a lot of support from around our district, and it's something that we, hopefully keep growing as the years come on, as the years go by. Hopefully we keep growing what we're able to offer our student athletes, and hopefully by the end of it all, we're able to lift all of our athletes during the day so we can kind of free up after school for either multiple sports or an opportunity. A lot of our kids work jobs, have to work jobs, need to work jobs for their family. So it allows a lot of opportunities for our kids outside of their normal routines. So here's our training facility. We were kind of excited. Just opened up towards the end of our football season. I believe this was week 10. We got some, absolutely miserable Ohio weather. It was basically raining sideways, and it was cold and windy. And so we decided to go inside. We couldn't run a full practice in there by any stretch, but this was, I believe, on a Thursday, and it was more of a walkthrough late in the season. Not something early in the season that we would have done, but for late in the season, it was awesome to get in there and run around a little bit. But, especially in the off season for our speed and agility work, very, very user friendly for us. We get in there, we're able to do everything we want to do. A lot of linear work, working on just power, and we'll talk about that later on. But been a great resource for us. And our baseball and softball programs allow us to get in there 1 day a week. And then just Team Builder, I'll show you some of the Team Builder. I'll show you some slides on Team Builder as we go through the presentation here. Kind of the yearly layout when we're looking at our strength and conditioning, and mainly, looking at football, because we have a lot more guys that are just football players than probably any other sport. Yeah, we do have a lot of guys that play multiple sports, and obviously we always encourage that. But just for the nature of the beast and how many players we have a lot of players that are only football players. So when we're looking at our yearly layout, I usually work in 4 to 6 week cycles. It allows me as a coach to kind of, see where we're at, reevaluate things, see what's working for us, see where we maybe need some work. And it allows me to kind of make plans, as the off season continues and areas that we need to get better at. So, those 4 week cycles, good chance for us to adapt and grow and get bigger and get stronger and all those great things. But it also allows us to change the plan if need be. If you talked to me 4 or 5 years ago, my cycles would have probably been 8 to 10 weeks, a little bit longer. And then I kind of pigeonhole myself a little bit. So as I've gotten older, I kind of like to shorten the cycles up a little bit more, just to allow us to change it up a little bit. So with our yearly layout, I really usually kind of start with, after season. So we've just ended the season. We give our guys their, mandatory time off. So once we return back, and this year it kind of timed up perfectly. When we came back from Thanksgiving, our Thanksgiving break, we were able to start back in the weight room. When we first get back in the weight room, we're focused on GPP, so general physical prep. We are setting the foundation for our guys to hopefully get stronger, get faster as we progress down into the spring and summertime. So we're going to do everything we can right now to really focus on imbalances, areas that we maybe aren't the best, and we're going to try to build a foundation so we can add some strength to that foundation later on down the line. Any lingering injuries, we obviously want to hit those up as much as we possibly can. So we're doing a lot of prehab, rehab, core work. I mean, this is, my opinion, a very important time because, again, it allows us to be able to handle more weight down the line. So we're going to spend, 4 to 6 weeks, trying to build that strong foundation as much as we possibly can before we head into bigger weights. A lot of times during this phase of our yearly plan, we are rep scheme wise going to be somewhere between 6 and 10, depending on the exercise. I mean, we could even balloon that to 15 to 20. As far as our reps are concerned, it just depends on the exercise and what we're doing, but we like to stay in that 6 to 10 range, and anywhere between 3 and 5 sets. So a lot of reps here, and the reason for that is because the weight is not going to be, maximal weight. So we're really trying to groove patterns and work positional work as much as we possibly can. So with our weight percentages, as far as, relating back to their 1 rep max, we are anywhere from 0, which would be just a body weight exercise, all the way up. And we probably are going to stay under 70%. And in most cases, probably even less than that, probably looking more at 50 to 60% of their 1 rep max from the previous testing session. So very important session here for our phase for us in our weightlifting program, and doing everything we can to work to make sure that we take care of those athletes and get them healthy and get them ready for heavier weights down the line, and getting that body able to handle those heavier weights. So this is our team builder. It's a screenshot of our team builder. This is what the kids would see when they're on their iPads. So they can click on any of these workouts here. So if you're looking at the kind of our general warm up, and we'll talk about this later on, we have anywhere between, we usually have about 6 to 7 different kinds of workouts or warm ups that we'll do with the kids, just to try to do everything we can to keep it fresh and not allow it to be stale. That's something that I've tried to be better at. In my past, it was just the same warm up every single day. Basically my thought process behind that was I want the kids to know what we're going to do and just do it. Well, with who we are and what we are, we need to switch it up. We end up getting into bad habits. We don't actually get as good of a warm up in when it's always the same. So we did a better job this off season of trying to implement a lot of different warm ups, and really it was just researching it, looking out there on different platforms and just trying to find different ways, different methods for warming up, ground-based stuff, just everything, just try to get the blood flowing a little bit. The next three things there, shoulder stability, core, and depth drops, those are prehab things for us. So those are things where we're trying to work on specific areas to try to minimize injuries as much as we possibly can. Your best ability is availability. So we want to do everything we can to try to minimize injuries. And this also is going to allow us to work on those imbalances that we talked about. So, typically with us, when we see injuries, it's shoulders, it's knees, it's ankles, and hips. So you need either a hip flexor or a groin or something like that. So those are really the four areas that we're going to do everything we can to make sure we do a lot of prehab for. We're going to hit those every single week with some type of preventative exercise to try to reduce the injuries as much as we possibly can. We're never going to prevent every injury. It's a violent sport. It's a contact sport. So we're never going to do, we're never going to have, zero injuries, but we're going to try to do everything we can to be resilient to those injuries. So hopefully if I do roll an ankle or somebody on our team rolls an ankle, it's one of those situations we can get them back a lot quicker than without these exercises, in my opinion. So we do a lot in that regard with the rehab items. And then the other stuff there, like I said, it's a foundation. So we're not bench pressing yet. We spent a lot of time working on just push-ups. And we had guys that were able to do 3 sets of 10 push-ups, and we had some guys that weren't able to do 3 sets of 10 push-ups. So we have variations for each of these exercises if kids aren't able to do all the reps, okay? And we have ways to make push-ups harder. So if they knock out 3 sets of 10 this week, next week we're going to do three sets of 10 again. And we're going to make it more difficult. We're going to put some weight on their back. We're going to add a band. We're going to do a lot of things to try to vary it up so they're not just doing the same thing. So whether they need to be, regressed or progressed, it doesn't really matter. We have options for those things. But very, very simple exercises here. And we'll talk more about the exercise selection and what we focus on as we get into the presentation here. But just a general layout so you can see reps and sets there. And this is, like I said, kids can look at this. They click on any of these, and they're allowed to put in weight for what they do. On a bicep curl, they put in how much weight they did. On the tricep kickback, they put in what they did. So it allows them to see week to week what they were able to do and try to beat what they did this previous week. Okay. The next kind of phase we would go into when we come back from Christmas break, and it usually lasts up until about spring break. Very much form and foundation still. We don't necessarily jump into using, top level, max level weights right now. We're trying to keep building that strong foundation. We've done it in different ways in the past, and this allows us to handle heavier weights down the line, rather than just loading them up and seeing them have, a lot of times we were, maybe chasing numbers and we ended up getting guys hurt. So this year we spent more time on isometrics and eccentrics. So what that is, either holding, if we're doing a barbell squat, we're going to go all the way down, and we could even hit multiple different isometric levels. But for us, we were doing isometrics at the bottom, working on our bottom position, keeping the core tight, and sinking the hips as much as we possibly can. And we were holding that bottom position for anywhere from 3 to 5 to even up to 10 seconds, just holding that position and then driving out of the bottom. Eccentrics, we're focusing on the lowering portion of the exercise. So again, in a bench press, we were doing 5-second eccentrics, and on this, so we had their partner counting them on the way down. 5 seconds, nice and slow on the way down, and then once they get to their chest, they're driving it back up. And we can even, combine the two, so where they're going nice and slow on the way down, holding at the bottom, and then driving back up. Again, it's all about time under tension here for the muscles. We're trying to do everything we can to hold those positions and, be strong in all of those various positions, again, helping us later on down the line. This is also the phase that we're going to start with some of our dynamic movements. So we'll start introducing a clean with our clean progression. A lot of our guys front squat, so we're always working that position. Anyways, and then we'll start pulling from the ground, doing some clean pulls, doing some high pulls, hang pulls, different things like that to just try to work on our hang cleans, power cleans. But we're not necessarily doing the full movement yet. We're working on just kind of positional work and, making the bar move with a lot of speed. Plyometrics, we're also starting to introduce here with vertical jump, broad jump, lateral movements. So, a lot of our plyometric work starts to get put in here. Very, very simple, basic beginner stuff, and we will progress as the off season continues with our plyometrics, and then eventually we'll add resistance to that. With our rep scheme here during this phase, we're usually between 3 to 6 reps, but again, your time under tension is going to be a lot longer because you're using that 5-second hold at the bottom, or you're using that 3-second lowering phase. So your time under tension is going to be a lot greater than the previous phase, even though your reps are going to be lower. Then with our weight, we're starting to kick up the weight a little bit here, but we're still not using maximal weight by any stretch of the imagination, especially when we're thinking about their 1 rep max. Usually at this phase, we're somewhere between 50 and 75% of their 1 rep max. And that's, again, max from the previous summer. So there is some adjusting there that we have to do because guys naturally get stronger just as they, get bigger and go through puberty. So, we definitely have to adjust those at times. But it's easy for me as a coach to be able to see, okay, that guy's moving that weight extremely fast. Then, it's probably time to make a little bit of adjustments. Not something we jump up 50, 60 pounds, but it might be a 10 to 20 pound kick and see how they go about it next week, and then kind of slowly progress them. And then we're also adding some accommodating resistance here with our isometrics and eccentrics. So for us, we're using bands. So when they're squatting, they're going to have their, 50 to 60% of their 1 rep max on the bar. And then we're also going to add some type of band to give them extra resistance on top of the 50 to 60%. So in reality, they're probably pushing 70 to 75% with the accommodating resistance. But it's through a band. So obviously at the bottom of a squat, they're going to have the least amount of resistance. They're just really going to have the bar weight on their back or on their shoulders for a front squat. And then at the top is where they're going to get the most work in. So we're, working that accommodating resistance there. It can also be done with chains. We just don't have the resources for that. So we use bands. So here's kind of a general layout. Again, we have our warm up. Then we go into our prehab, rehab. So those are things that we're all doing together. Then we're splitting up, and we try to, do everything we can to put guys like, our strongest 4 to 5 guys in a group, depending on how many guys we have in the weight room. Usually we're anywhere groups of 3 to 5. So we put those guys together, and they get an iPad. And with Team Builder, you can go up to 4 people working on the same iPad. And then otherwise you'd have to open up another tab, which we've done. But those guys would all get on the iPad. They would all pull up, and this is what they would see. So they click on A. That's our first thing that we're working together with. So on this day specifically, we were doing a zombie squat, which is basically a front squat with no hands. You're just straight out in front. Or they were front squatting with straps. So just a variation of a front squat. The tempo here, they were 2-second hold at the bottom. So they were normal tempo on the way down. Once they hit the bottom of their zombie squat or front squat, they were holding that position for 2 seconds, really focusing on, making sure the core is tight, chest is up, and being able to maintain a good quality position here, and then driving up out of the bottom. So they were doing 3 reps. So I set their first weight, and this is a little bit misleading. When they would have opened this up, the first set would have been set for them, so 95 pounds. And really, when I'm designing these, I'm looking at set 1 and 2 as a warm-up set for them, and then really 3, 4, 5, 6 are our working sets. So the first set for them, and then they're basically making their decision on where they're at after that first set. So how did you feel on that first set? Well, if it was really, really easy, jump 30 pounds. So we give them a little bit of leeway on that. And again, I'm working with, guys that have been in our program for a couple years. So I'm more willing to give them some leeway on that. If this was a freshman, I'm going to tell them exactly what I want them to do. And we're going to progress them nice and slowly. Kind of a slow cooker approach when it comes to that. But with our upperclassmen guys, we're going to give them a little bit of freedom. And again, it's just kind of a progression as we go up. So they could go anywhere from 0 to 30-pound jumps in between each set, depending on how hard the set was. So this person here jumped 20 pounds each set, and they finished with their 195 for 3 reps on their last set. So that's the squat. And then after the squat, that was our core lift for the day. And then B, C, and D on the other side there, pull-ups, push-up, and lateral squat. That's our accessory work. And then we do a finisher together, which is usually arms, bis and tris. We just kind of burn it out and, bro it out a little bit and finish together there. Once we get back from spring break, so this year's a little bit different, obviously. But once we get back from spring break, our usual mindset is now we're really working on max strength. So we're going to try to do everything we can to get as big and strong as possible from now to the end of the season. Our guys are usually their absolute strongest, as far as our max outs are concerned. They usually do their best numbers at the end of the school year. And really that's kind of by design, because in the summer we kind of switch mentality a little bit. But we are looking for max strength here from spring break to the end of the school year. The best method that I've kind of found to go about that is the RPE method. So that's stands for rate of perceived exertion. And the reason why I really like RPE is because high school guys or girls, doesn't really matter. There's so many variables that come into play when you're looking at their training. With the RPE, if a guy comes in today and he feels great, it allows him to really push, and he's probably going to set a new max today. Now, on the flip side of that, if a guy comes in and he's really stressed out, maybe he didn't sleep well last night, he was up too late studying, or he was up too late screwing around on the video game, or, maybe he failed a test today, or his girlfriend broke, who knows? But there's a ton of variables that our guys come into the weight room with. And if he comes in today and he's not feeling great or his body's not feeling great, it's going to allow him to get the most out of his body, even though he's not at his 100%. So he may be only at 80%, and that's what we're going to get out of him. Okay, so it allows you to have a little bit more variance there based off of how they're feeling. Okay, and then with this, we're usually going to be more of it's going to be a very linear progression. So we're going to start with higher reps, lower weight, and we're going to end right before our max out week with low reps and higher weight. So 5 to 7 reps, we're anywhere from 60 to 75%. Again, that can balloon based off of how they're feeling with the RPE. Okay. And then 3 to 5 reps, 70, 85%. And then 1 to 3 reps, 85% or more. So this, we're probably even going to set a new max during that 1 to 3 rep phase. We don't necessarily count that for our max out boards or anything, but it allows the kid to have a little confidence going into max out day. Like, I've already hit this weight, so it's something I know I can do. So here's again, and this was from last year, leading into our max out day. So, we had our warm up, we did our prehab, and then we jumped into barbell bench press. Okay. So you can see how the RPE kind of works. So they're starting off with 75%, and A was their warm up. So this is actually B that you're seeing here on the right side. These are just their working sets. So we started them with 75%. The rep scheme said 3 to 5 reps. So that's something that Team Builder allows for us to do, which is pretty cool. So if I do, you can see the example there. If I do 3 reps, I got to stay at the same weight. Okay, so we're going to try to push the reps as much as we can. If I do 4 reps, I'm trying to go up 10 pounds. If I do 5 reps, I'm going to try to go up 20 pounds. Now, obviously, you can see that this person jumped 15 and 15 both times. Again, we'll give them some leeway on this, just depending on how easy it was. So if they smoke 175 and it's easy and it's not a challenge at all, then we'll give them a little bit of leeway on how much they can go up. Now, this person here obviously, wasn't real confident on doing the 20 pounds. So even though they did 5 reps on that first set, they weren't really confident on doing the 20-pound jump. So they bumped it down to 15, and that's okay as well. Then on the last set, they can go anywhere 3 to 10. And this is where Team Builder is pretty cool. It allows us to set a new max. So with that last set, they are going up to 10. So if somebody goes, 205 for 10 reps, their max is going to go up, because in theory, they should probably still be between 3 and 5 reps. So anything more than 5 reps here, they're going to set a new max, and that'll be their new training max heading into next week and whatever we're doing. Okay. So here we did trap bar deadlift as well. So we were doing 2 core lifts on this day. And then we jumped into our rotation with a partner. Once we get to summer, like I said, we are just, at the end of the school year, we're hitting our max strength. So once we get to summer, the mindset changes a little bit. Now we're looking on power. So we're wanting to move the heaviest weights possible as fast as possible. So really the focus becomes more on speed in this section of our year, because we want to be, it's a speed game we play. So we want our max speeds to be hit once we get to August. So a lot of the ways we do that, we're going to do some contrast training. So we're going to do, on a squat day, maybe we're going to do a heavy back squat, and then in between sets, and really it's as quickly as you possibly can, we're going to do some type of jump or very explosive work. So we're, supersetting a heavy back squat or a heavy front squat with a hurdle jump or a box jump, something like that. So heavy with explosive, those are paired up together. And this is kind of how that looked for us last summer. So this day specifically, we were doing sumo deadlift, and we've kind of switched our mentality on that a little bit. We kind of went over to more of do more trap bar deadlifting than sumo deadlifting. But anyways, for this day specifically, they were doing a heavy sumo deadlift. And then in between that set, they would hustle into our small gym, and they were doing a resisted band broad jump. So it was in between sets. They hit that first set at 210, hustle into the small gym, do your 2 broad jumps, resisted, jumping, being explosive, and all that good stuff. Okay. Then they would come back in, and they're working in groups of, like I said, 3 to 5. So by the time they get back in, then they're helping change weight. They probably get 1 to 2 minutes rest, and then it's going to be their set again. So it kind of times up pretty good. And then once we, got through that, they were doing that contrast training back and forth. Once we finish our core lift, then we get into partners and we do a rotation there. That would be C, D, and E. C, D, E, and F, sorry. And I'll explain a little bit more about what we look at with our accessory work. So yeah, getting into more of our weekly layout. So that was our yearly layout, and now more of our weekly layout. We're going to do some type of general or dynamic warm-up every single day. And like I said, I've been trying to be better with this. Our main focus here, we want to get the blood flowing, especially after school. Kids been sitting in a desk for 7 hours a day. We need to get up. We need to get moving around. We need to, get the blood pumping a little bit. Same thing in the summer. I mean, we're lifting at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m., whatever time you're lifting. Get up, get moving around, get the blood flowing as much as we possibly can. And that can be done in a variety of ways. It might just be a game. I don't know. It just depends on what you're working with. But we got to get up, get it moving around. And like I said, we want to try to change that up as much as we possibly can and keep it fresh for the kids. After we get through our general warm-up, this is something that helped me this year. And I know it's kind of silly, but we get into what I like to call our appetizers. So with our appetizers, we're going to focus on 3 main things. First thing being prehab. So we're going to take care of those problem areas. And like I said, for us, it's always been ankles, knees, hips, shoulders. We're going to do, and you could probably throw neck into there as well. But neck's kind of its own entity because we try to do something neck related almost every single day to try to reduce the concussions as much as we possibly can. So we're going to hit the prehab. We're going to do something to try to work on those target areas and try to reduce the amount of injuries that we see during the course of the year. We're also going to do core. To be quite honest, I hate core. I know how important it is. And that's why we do it right here, because inevitably I was putting it at the end of workouts. And it would always get to a point and we would maybe run over a day and we wouldn't get to a core. And it would be something that I would always just kind of throw out and, wouldn't really worry too much about. So now we're doing core at the beginning to make sure we really focus on it. For us, core is not, I'm not trying to get these guys a 6-pack. I mean, if they get one, great. It doesn't really matter to me. But we're not trying to work on, the beach body muscles here. We're trying to build stability. So that way, when we load up, a heavy squat or a heavy trap bar or a clean, that their bodies can handle it. We want to try to reduce the amount of lower back injuries. And again, it carries right over to the field because you're going to be hitting, you're going to be tackling. It's a violent sport like we've already talked about. We want to create stability as much as we possibly can. So the ways we like to do that personally, we're going to carry heavy stuff. Sometimes that's, carrying a trap bar, loaded up. Sometimes it's a single dumbbell. Sometimes it's a double dumbbell. Sometimes it's over who knows? But we're going to carry stuff and we're going to carry it differently almost every single week, just to try to keep it fresh. We're going to crawl. So we're going to do bear crawls. Again, just focusing on stability, okay, and trying to build up that core as much as we possibly can. We're going to do anti-rotation. We're going to do anti-flexion. We're going to do anti-extension things to try to, again, just trying to build the stability so we're solid under that clean when we catch it, or we're solid under that squat when we're going down and driving back up. So we know how to, build pressure in our stomach to make sure that we don't have any of those lower back injuries. And then the last thing is going to be potentiation. So we're going to do everything we can to try to prime the pump. Basically what I mean here is if we're doing a squat, if we're doing a heavy squat day, we're going to do something to get the body ready. So it's usually going to be some type of an explosive exercise. So for a squat, it might be a jump. It might be a throw, throwing a med ball. If it's a bench press, same thing. We might do an explosive push-up. We might do an assisted push-up. We might do a med ball slam into the ground. A lot of different options there, but we're going to try to prime the pump and get it ready to move those heavy weights, okay? Then we get into our entree. For us, we focus on bench, squat, clean, deadlift. Those are our four areas that we test as far as the weight room is concerned. Obviously, we're going to also do broad jump. We're going to also do vertical jump. We're going to also do 40s, and we're probably also, at this point in time, going to do a flying 10 because we now have the ability to do that as well. But these are the areas that we test. So these are going to be our core areas. These are going to be the areas that we put, the focus on, because this is where we feel like if we get better in these four areas, that we can be better on the field. And that's what it all comes down to, is being better on the field. After we get done with our core work and our variation for core for the core lift during the day, we get into dessert. And this is our accessory work that kind of goes back and helps with those core lifts, in our opinion. So this is kind of my checklist as I'm going through and designing workouts. These are things that I want to see on a daily basis. If not on a daily basis, then it's got to be on an every other day basis. But we're gonna do some type of pull every day. So whether that's a vertical pull, so an overhead pull, it might be a lat pull down, it might be a pull up, or it might be a horizontal pull, so a row, a barbell row, a dumbbell row, or a body weight row. And then we're also going to try to make sure that we mix it up as far as, unilateral versus bilateral. We want variety when it comes to that. So are we using two arms or are we using one arm? Okay, one arm is going to be a little bit more of a strain on our core. We're going to have to stabilize a little bit better. And then obviously we're working just peak power when we're doing two arms. So that would be, unilateral versus bilateral. Same thing goes with push here, vertical or horizontal. Again, are we going overhead or are we going out in front, kind of like a traditional bench press or an incline bench press? So we'll do a lot of different things here. We'll do some landmine work. We'll do some just, old school military press. And then we'll do, just your normal floor presses, dumbbell bench press, things like that for the horizontal. Again, unilateral, bilateral. Are we doing one arm, two arms? Same thing goes with the pushes and the pulls. Inevitably, at the end of the day, all of us probably do more pushes than pulls. So for me, when I'm designing this, I'm always trying to get two pulls for every one push. That's not, I'm not recreating a wheel or anything like that. Some people would even say 3-1, because chances are your athletes are probably going somewhere else and bench pressing later on or doing push-ups later on. So always want to add more pulls than push, because we just need to even ourselves out as much as we possibly can. Posterior change, huge. You want to run faster, you want to jump higher, you want to hit somebody harder, you better build up the post chain, which is going to be your hamstrings, your glutes, everything basically on the backside of your body. So we got a lot of different exercises for those. RDLs, one of our favorites. We also like the glute ham developer, but we do a lot of variations to try to keep the hamstrings healthy and build the hamstrings, build the glutes, stronger, more powerful athletes. And again, we can do different things there with one leg or two legs depending on where we're at. Again, it's always just trying to change things up and keep it fresh for the guys. And then lateral crossover stuff, really just building the hips, great for adductors, abductors, inner hip, outer hip, that kind of thing. So just moving, the game we play is not, we're not running track. It's not just one direction. We have to move in multiple planes. So we want to do everything we can to mimic that in the weight room with lateral work or crossover work. So we have a lot of different variations for that. And then obviously bicep, tricep, really, I could do without them. If it was up to me, I would probably leave them out. But kids like it. So, we're going to do what we can to make sure the kids leave feeling a pump, and I'm not saying that's always, the best way to tell if you had a good workout or not. But if a kid leaves the weight room feeling bigger, feeling like their muscles are larger, he's going to have a little bit more confidence, and he's going to have a little bit more reason to come back in the next day or whatever the next workout is. So we'll hit some bis and tris usually at the end just to kind of burn it out and keep the kids happy. With our speed and agility work this off season, we really focused on it a lot more. Like I said, with that facility, it kind of gave us the options to get a lot more speed and agility work in the off season. Working in Ohio, you just usually don't have that option to have that indoor space. With our off season speed and agility, we're all linear. So, it's usually straight ahead speed. We are working on hitting great form, and we want to see solid positions, with that knee up, the toe up, full extension in the back leg. How high are we able to get the knee? Those are all things that we're looking for in the form and the position. And we're going to do a lot of drills to just try to put them in solid positions. And that's usually the first thing we're going to do after our general warm-up. After we do a lot of form and position stuff, then we're going to move into some type of movement that is at full speed. That might be a falling start. It might be a timed fly 10. It might be, starts from different points, maybe getting up off the ground, or a split squat, or a half kneeling start. But we like to hit some type of full speed movement while they're fresh. And, it's not usually going to be a very long movement, probably anywhere from, 10 to 15 yards. But we want to try to get fast, full speed movement right here while we're fresh. And it's usually only going to be probably anywhere from 2 to 5 reps. It's not going to be a ton, but again, just to move fast, I think is huge every time we get a chance to. After we do our full speed stuff, then we're doing some type of power production movement. So this is going to be some type of resisted march. So sometimes we'll use bands, sometimes we'll use sleds, sometimes we'll use med balls. But we're going to do something to improve the amount of power we can put into the ground. So we're going to, march with a sled, or, fast high knees with a band. But a lot of things are just, our focus here is putting power through the ground and pushing the ground away behind us, and trying to get that, full speed moving forward. And then we'll usually end with some type of agility. A lot of times the agility stuff turns into a game of some sort. So we, set parameters and we just really make it up on the fly. And usually we end up having to add more rules because kids are smart and they figure out ways to cheat the game. But we're going to do some type of agility work to and it's, people mix this up a little bit when they think agility. They think like, well, okay, now we're going to run forward, touch that cone, and then run to our lip. No, that's not agility. That's a predetermined movement. That's change of direction. Which there's a time and a place for that. I completely agree with. But for agility, it needs to be a lot of cognitive as well as just, making a decision based off of a defender, or adding a ball in there sometimes, or, even a easy game of like putting old school like flag football flags on everybody and playing flag tag. That's some good agility work where they're having to react to a defender, or maybe they are the defender and they're having to react and try to mimic an offensive player. So we'll do a little bit of that at the end. And like I said, usually it's in the game form. Once we get to summer, we will work on change of direction, just solely change of direction. So we usually start our summer. So that's when we actually have all of our athletes together. And that way we can kind of all start on the same boat. So this is just your old school, like go to that line and touch and then come back. We try to hit every different direction. We start with, kind of easier cuts. So it might be like a 135-degree angle, like a post route. And then we try to make those cuts a little bit harder. So then it works down to a 90 and then running full speed, doing a 180 and coming back the other direction. So it just depends. But we usually like to try to start with stuff that's easier and then work to things that are a little bit more difficult. And it can even be, like a shuffle into a sprint. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a change of direction. It can be, change of movement. So like I said, a shuffle into a sprint or a shuffle into a back pedal or something like that. And then, probably about 3 to 4 weeks of that, to be honest. And then we get into more of our agility things where guys are having to make decisions based off of a defender or multiple defenders, or based off of an offensive player. So they're reacting to somebody else. Okay. So now we've introduced the cognitive, and they have to be a little bit better in their decision-making process. And then we'll also get into our conditioning a little bit at this point. I think with our conditioning, our mindset has changed a whole lot over the last couple of years. And it's, there's a lot of people out there doing a lot of very intelligent things with the conditioning. We're getting away from probably when I was in high school and definitely when I was in college. I can remember the first conditioning test I ever took in college was 300-yard shuttle. I couldn't tell you the last time I ran a 300-yard shuttle in a football game. Never. It doesn't happen. It was a grinder. It sucked. But did it put me in the best shape for football? Argument would say probably not. My opinion now changed a little bit on that. So we are going to try to mimic the game as much as possible. So we've seen a lot of different breakdowns of, how long is the average play? What percentage of effort is the guy given on every single play? Usually it's anywhere from 90% and up. So with that being said, how many times do they change direction in a play? Anywhere 1 to 3 change of directions on average. So when we're designing our conditioning test, we want to try to mimic that as much as possible. Average play 4 to 6 seconds, 4 to 7 seconds, depending on who you are, what you're doing. So our conditioning test better be repeated sprints that last about 4 to 6 seconds. And, it better have 1 to 3 changes of direction built in. Again, to try to mimic the game as much as we possibly can. And what's the average drive? What's your average drive? 6 to 8 plays, 6 to 10 plays? Are you more of a grinded out team? Are you 10 and above? Then your conditioning plan better mimic that. So we're going to do everything we can to self-scout us and see where we're at and try to make our conditioning fit what our team is. And that's going to be our big thing here moving into this summer. So that's going to be our focus. So that's all I got for you guys. Obviously, like I said, I put my email there early on in the presentation. So if you want to reach out, bounce ideas, I'm always willing to talk, love talking to people and seeing how other people do things. If you ever have any questions on anything that I talked about here, just kind of give you a brief overview of what we do, how we do. A lot of ways to skin a cat, but this is what we found works best for us. I definitely appreciate you guys. And, if you ever have any questions, like I said, reach out and would love to talk to you guys.